All right, so welcome to week 3. This is our Monday night live session. And for this week, we will be designing our full page advertisement for the back cover. Obviously, what you're going to do is you're going to choose a product or a service that would run in the type of magazine that you chose. I will be working on the assignment tonight and the assessment. I might actually also get to some of the critiques that I promised, and I have a number of people who have sent me their work to be critiqued, and I thank all of you for doing that. More than likely, I will be doing a lot of them tomorrow. But, we'll do a little bit tonight, do a little bit tomorrow. I'll do a little bit of work on this tonight, maybe a little bit of this work on this tomorrow as well. But anyway, we have tonight, we have tomorrow. So the assignment instructions for this week is in the 8-page document we set up in week 1 and added to in week 2. We will be using page 8 for a full page ad. So we'll set up our master pages so the numbering will not show on this page. I talked about the master pages, and I also told you that, well, actually I didn't, because we didn't get to the cover yet. I'll show you how we will use the master page to remove the page numbering from the page if I haven't already done it. And now that I think about it, I'm not sure I did do it. I might have done it, but I don't exactly remember, so I'll try to remember to do that as well. It says create a new unique grid for this advertisement. That's if you want to build the advertisement in Adobe InDesign, which you are more than, I'm more than happy for you to do it that way if that's what you want to do. I, on the other hand, myself, I went in and I created my advertisement in Adobe Photoshop because my art for my advertisement is heavy in creativity. I did a lot of montage work on mine, and I am going to show you how I did that tonight if you choose to do it this way. So I think the reason I chose to do it this way is because you really need to understand that when you're working in a program like Adobe InDesign, it's a program that combines the best of all the Adobe programs together. So Adobe Illustrator, for instance, is utilized to create assets that go into an InDesign layout. And Photoshop is used to modify and create interesting images that also can be used in an InDesign layout. So what I did was I basically chose to go that way because I found that from a creative standpoint, well, you'll see when I actually show you what I did. You can do a lot of really interesting montage work with Adobe Photoshop. So what I did was I literally created the entire ad in Photoshop. Now, what I could have done just as easily was to just create the artwork part of the ad in Adobe Photoshop, left all the copy out altogether, and then I could have brought the ad in and I could have put the copy in over top of that in InDesign. That's another way to go. And I'll go over this when I get into Photoshop. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Now, obviously, we're going to be using the principles of design to create a strong composition. I'm going to say this to you. I've said it to you before. I probably should, say it to you all the time. Try to have fun doing this. Try to enjoy doing this. I don't know about you, but I've been doing graphic design since 1971. And in all that time, I can't think of too many instances where I didn't enjoy doing what I do. I mean, I've always enjoyed doing this. When I went to Cooper Union, which wasn't really a graphic design school per se, it was more of a fine arts school, I was seen as kind of an oddity because I was somebody who really wanted to do graphic design there. And they didn't have a lot of graphic design courses. They were only really starting to get graphic design courses when I went there. It was all fine art, architecture, and engineering. And you know, I went through my entire 4 years of undergraduate school, and I got a fine art degree, but I always wanted to be a graphic designer, and that's what I became, and that's what I've always been, and I've always enjoyed doing this. If you take a look at what I wrote last week, I believe it was, I talked about the difference between art and graphic design. Read what I say, and I think you get a sense of who I am. I'm the type of person that I'm a graphic designer. I'm not so much a fine artist. You know, my challenge is the graphic design challenge, not so much the fine art challenge. My challenge is to work with somebody who has some kind of a need for a particular piece and create something from that need that will go in and be viewed by customers and bring business in. You know, these are the things that I find challenging. These are the things that I enjoy doing. I'm assuming that you people feel the same way, because obviously you're studying to be graphic designers as well. To get back to what I started with in this, have fun doing this. This whole project should be fun. You should enjoy doing this. I'm going to critique you, because guess what? That's the real world. I'm not trying to be mean when I critique you. What I'm trying to do is two things. I'm trying to teach you things, and number two, I'm trying to help you take what you've done and make it as good as it can possibly be, so that in the end you perhaps will end up with something that could conceivably be used as a portfolio piece, something that may potentially be presentable to a customer, a client, a potential client, and maybe get you some work. So that's really what my goal is here, you know. And I guess what I'm going to say to you is, at least in my mind, this assignment is significantly easier to do than week 2 assignment and even week 1 assignment, because now, instead of working with 2 pages as you did in week 1 and 4 pages as you worked on in week 2, you're only working with 1. You only have 1 page to design. So here's my suggestion to you. Use this week. Get this done. Get this part of your assignment done as quickly as you can. Do a nice job, but get it done. And then what you can do is, whatever time you worked on last week, look at my critique and see if you can make your piece better by virtue of using my critique as something that you can use to make it better. My suggestions to you are, in hope, ways of making you come up with something that's better. So that's what I would suggest you do. All right. Now, a couple of things that I want to mention here. Last week they were very imprecise, and I didn't catch this on time, unfortunately, so it's kind of my fault. They just mentioned that they wanted a file upload. So a lot of people were uploading InDesign files, INDD files, for their not their assignment, but for their assessment. The problem with uploading to me or to anybody InDesign files is it's just wrong. And I could have probably, because of the nature of the file, I could have probably graded them, but I chose not to grade them because I need you guys to understand, you never just upload an InDesign file ever to anybody. One of the things that you do is either convert it to PDF or you package it. The reason that you convert it to PDF is a form that will enable the graphic designer to produce a file where all the pictures and all the fonts get embedded into the file. So essentially, if you send me an InDesign file and I open that up as an InDesign document in Adobe Acrobat, everything that you send me is going to be exactly the way it should look. Now, if you want to send me something like an InDesign file, you have to package it. The reason you have to package it is because there are links that link to fonts and there are links that link to graphics. And what happens is, if you send me an InDesign file that hasn't been packaged and I try to open that file up on my computer is going to go looking for those linked pictures, and it's not going to find them because they're not linked on my computer the same way they're linked on your computer. And it's the same thing when you're working with fonts. If you're using a font that's on my computer, fine. Your project will open up and your font will display perfectly. But if you send me a file where you're using a font that I don't have on my computer, I'm going to be out of luck. It's simply not going to work. I'm not going to have a file that I can use. So again, these things, I don't ask you to do them lightly. I do them because it's part of the learning process. You have to understand that. And again, when you get into Dreamweaver, you're going to find a very similar thing occurs. When you create a file or a website in Dreamweaver, you have to create what's known as a site. And the site is a folder that has all the elements of the site within it. Well, that's what a package is. A package is essentially a folder, and inside the folder is a recreation of the document that you're working on. And there are two folders that are inside as well, and one of the folders will have all of the pictures in it, and one folder will have all the fonts that you're using in it. So what happens is the fonts and the pictures all get relinked within that folder into your document. So when I go to open mine, or yours, on my computer, it's going to open up and it's going to display the way it should look. And if I have a font that is missing on my computer, the font will actually be in your folder, and I will be able to literally go in and upload that font into my computer, unless it's a font that won't open on a PC. I'm on a PC, you're on a Mac. If it's a font, there are certain fonts that I can't open up because they're not PC fonts, they're Mac fonts. Generally speaking, they'll be able to open the font up. So, you know, that's what I wanted to say to you. It's very important. And as a matter of fact, it's so important that I went in and I created a video to show you how to convert your InDesign file into a PDF to send to me. I also did a small video to show you how to package it. I know that some of you, most of you, I assume, know how to do this. Some of you might not. And you might not know in InDesign how it gets done. But now you do, because I created those two videos. I also sent you an email, and the email basically told you where to go. It gave you the links for you to go and view those videos. They're very short videos. And I'll show you again tonight in class when I get to it. But again, those videos exist on my YouTube site. I think they're like 8 minutes long. You can go in and you can look at them at your own leisure. I'm going to shut the video off. There we go. And let me continue. So here's what I want to point out next. The submission instructions. Okay, see, again, you know, last week I was getting a lot of people sending me InDesign files for your assessment. And again, I told most of you who did that to send me PDFs, and most of you did, and I graded you. Okay, if you send me a file and it's the wrong file format, I will consider, as you can see, because you can see how I graded you, I will consider that as a submission attempt, and I will not, if you send me the wrong file format and then you miss the deadline and send me the correct file format, since you submitted the incorrect one, in my mind, you made the attempt to submit it. There was a mistake. So I give you the credit for having submitted that. And when you send me your modified version, I will give you full credit because you made an attempt to submit the thing. It was incorrect, but you made the attempt. So, I mean, what I'm trying to say to you is I'm really an easy person to deal with. I'm doing the best I can to help you as much as I can and give you as much leeway as I can. You know, I mean, there are certain things I can do and certain things I can't do. So I'm just saying I'm trying to be as fair as possible. So here's the deal. This week, this assignment, you have to export it as a PDF of just page 8. So what I'm going to be expecting, and here's the thing, now I'm going to start getting a little bit critical with you. If I don't get it submitted properly, I'm going to start deducting points, because it's important for you to realize that you have instructions that you have to follow as a graphic designer, and you have to start learning to follow these instructions. Somebody's going to give you instructions, and it makes you look professional if you follow these instructions. If you don't follow these instructions, and get this, I know it, everybody makes mistakes. It's the nature of the beast. But again, as I say, you got to make the effort to try to do things in a professional manner. And one of the first things that you should be doing is you should be reading through the assignment and the submission instructions at the proper time, and make sure that you understand what the assignment instructions are actually asking you to do. And when it comes time for submission, you should look at the submission instructions and really understand what they're asking you to do. Okay? Now, I'm not faulting anybody for last week, because it does say file submitting. Look, I'll show you right here. Look. See what it says here? Points 120, submitting a file upload. File type, PDF. I do not believe last week the assessment said submitting a file upload, file type PDF. I believe last week the assessment said just submitting a file upload. So technically you're not wrong, but I then went a step further as your instructor, and I asked for a PDF, which I'm entitled to do. So I asked you for the PDF because you need to understand that it is incorrect to submit just a plain, ordinary InDesign file. If you want to send an InDesign file, it must be packaged. Even if it's simple, it must be packaged, or it must be turned into a PDF. So I want you all to understand this. That's why I'm making a big deal of talking about this right now. It's something that I believe is very important for you to consider. So again, back to what I was saying, you really should look at your instructions carefully. It doesn't tell you here, it says here in the 8-page document you set up in week 1 and adding into week 2, you will be using the 8th page for your ad. Set up in master pages so page numbering will not show on this page. Means basically you're just going to remove the page numbering from that page and create a unique grid for this advertisement. Write your own copy, headline, slogans needed for the ad. Use good use of principles of design to create a strong composition. Okay, now there are your assignment instructions. Nowhere in that assignment instruction does it tell you that you absolutely must create this ad in Adobe InDesign. So what I'm saying to you is, if you choose to create it in InDesign, that's okay with me. If you choose to create it in Adobe Photoshop, like I did, and import it into InDesign, that's okay as well. And a matter of fact, if you wanted to create it in Adobe Illustrator and bring it in as an imported graphic, that's fine too. Okay, so it's completely up to you which way you want to go with it. For the sake of creativity and to hopefully show you some interesting stuff, I've created mine in Adobe Photoshop, and I'm going to give you a demonstration of how I did it tonight. That is part of what I'm going to show you. The only reason I'm doing that is because there really isn't a whole lot for me to show you this week as far as creating this 8th page ad. I mean, really, all it is one page, and it's going to be a four-way bleed. So it's going to bleed off of all 4 sides of the page. I mean, what do? You just basically set up a big frame that covers the entire 4-page covers the entire page to all 4 of your bleed lines, and you put your image in. That's all there is to it. It's just that simple. So, you know, it's there's not a whole lot of layout work involved in this particular thing. Whereas in week 1, I had 2 pages to lay out, and I had to show you how I would do that. And in week 2, I had 4 pages that I had to lay out and that you had to lay out. And I wanted to show you how to do that so that you guys had some idea how to go about doing it, and that maybe you'd learn something. There's not a whole heck of a lot to learn about creating a frame that's going to bleed all 4 ways around the page, and then, you know, importing a graphic into it. So in order for me to show you something, I've decided what I'll do is I'll show you a little bit about how I made this ad, and maybe you'll have some fun and you'll create an ad very similar to it using the same sort of mechanisms that I use. If you don't, if you choose to do it another way, I have no problem with that, just so long as you end up creating this ad. Now, while we're at it, let me quickly change over to week 3 assessment, because week 3 assessment is essentially a very similar item to what you're producing for the assignment. Print design is a very different entity from web design. Excuse me. Nevertheless, publishers are now faced with having to create advertisements for both print and web. To demonstrate the differences between designing for print versus web, what we're going to do is we're going to take the full page advertisement created in InDesign. Well, it says here now created in InDesign for week 3 assignment. Again, it doesn't specify that in the other one. So again, I'm giving you the freedom of, you can do it in InDesign, you can do it in Photoshop. I did it in Photoshop. You're going to create an accompanying web mock-up design in Photoshop for the ad. And I see it's telling you here that it wants a mock-up design for the thing in Photoshop. So again, while it's telling you to create the ad in Photoshop for the web mock-up, my choice was to create both of them in Photoshop, because if I were actually creating an ad, I would probably have created most of the ad in Photoshop anyway, and then if anything, I might have removed the fonts that go with it, and I might have added that in InDesign. So again, I'm going to give you the freedom to do it either way. It's totally up to you. What I'm looking for a nice ad to be designed for the 8th page, and I'm looking for an accompanying graphic, which is essentially a JPEG graphic mock-up of an ad for the web. Use what you have learned to create a good composition and grid system. Employ good practices of the craft principle. The ad banner size for the website is, and this is incredibly important, because what you want to do now is when you create this ad and when you create this page, you want to make sure that you are using the correct size for both of them. So pay close attention to this right here. The banner size is 960 pixels wide by 520 pixels high. Realize that it will have differences from what you produced for the print magazine. So essentially, read what it says here. The orientation is different. This web banner advertisement is going to have a horizontal appearance, what they call landscape. It's going to be wider than it is tall. The print one is going to be a portrait or a vertical. So in other words, it's going to be 11 inches high, plus 8.5 inches wide. It's going to also have a bleed, so you have to put 1/4 of an inch into both directions as well. The resolution of the graphics need to be optimized for the web, 72 pixels per inch. So what it also needs is you need it to be 960 pixels wide by 520 pixels high, and it has to have a resolution of 72 pixels per inch. Your ad for the for print should have 300 pixels per inch, and it should be in CMYK, not RGB. Keep this in mind. All information you put into your full page print ad must be in the web ad. I will allow you to put in as much of it as you possibly can, but keep in mind you want the information to be the same as much as possible. When you see what I did for the web and when you see what I did for the print, you'll see I basically have the same thing. I have one or two things that are in my web ad that I don't have in the print ad because it essentially makes sense on one and it doesn't make sense on another. You'll see what I mean when I get there. Keep the look and feel similar. Very important that you understand you're creating a cohesive graphic. You're creating a cohesive look for these two ads. They're for the same company, they're for the same product, service, or whatever, and they should resemble one another as much as possible, okay? It's all about branding, and that's right. It's all about branding. You know, when you create something, you want it to look consistent. Even if you change it at some point, it should be consistent while you're using it. When you reach a point when you change it, it will change, and then all of the advertisements will change the same way to keep it consistent until you change it again. So keep this all in mind. It's very important. Let's say a person subscribes to his magazines and read it. He saw the advertisement on the back you created. At a later point in time, surfing the web, and he stumbles upon the web version of the ad. Will it catch his or her attention because they've seen it before? When you look at what I did, you're going to see that they're almost exactly the same. Now, of course, they're not completely the same because they're a different arrangement in terms of their layout. But that still doesn't mean you can't approach it from the standpoint of trying to make them look the same. So I just want you to keep that in mind. It's very important for you as a designer to do these things when you're working on something which is the same. If you're working on two separate projects that are from the same company, the same product, the same service, you want to keep them consistent. Very important. I don't say this lightly, okay? All right, so the submission instructions, optimize the JPEG of the ad in the correct size and resolution. Okay, so really that can all be done at the end. And of course, you're going to name it accordingly. So that's your assignment and assessment for the week. You're going to create two ads. One of them is an ad for a print publication, and one is a web ad. They're both ads. They're both different. That's the important thing. And that really goes right to the core of this entire course, what this course is really about. You know, how to deal with elements that are for print and how to deal with elements that are for the web. All right. So as I say, keep this information in mind. I've already started mine. That's the next thing that we're going to take a look at. Okay. So this is my Photoshop, and here we go. Let's see if I can get it to open up. They've been acting a little bit strangely for me today, so let's see if I can get it to open. There we go. Yeah, it seems to be acting very funny today. Okay, so there is my ad for my print. Okay, this is what I created for my page 8 ad. Now, the only thing that I did not use on this that I used on my other, oh, and by the way, so this is print. This is my my web. This is the web. Oh, I'm sorry, wrong one. Here we go. There's the web. What do I have in both of them? Oh, here we go. Okay, it's slow. There's the web. Now, the only thing that I did differently on the web is I believe I included www.flame.com, and I included this, which is my Visa, MasterCard, Discovery, and Master Express cards. That's something that I picked up on the internet, and I created these buttons here. Now, the reason I created those buttons is because since it's a web ad, it's possible to actually have those as hotspots that you could go to tweet. You could tweet about this, or you could share it, or you could like it. You could actually create those things in your web ad. So I chose to put them on there to make the web ad look all the more real. And of course, this is something that I could have put on the print ad. I just didn't do it. See, and I wouldn't put this stuff here the likes, the tweets, the share. Wouldn't put it on this because this is print and it wouldn't relate. However, I could have just as easily come in here and I could have added, which I just didn't do, www.flame.com and that guy right there. I also could have put in Carnivore Paradise. I chose not to do that. But if you basically look at this, the Flame is exactly the same. The Brazilian Steakhouse, steaks, cocktails, and family dining. The phone number's the same. You look at this one here, Flame, Brazilian Steakhouse, steaks, cocktails, and family dining. The phone number, and oh, by the way, I do have www.flame.com on here. So the only thing I don't have here is this guy right here, right there. And I could easily get that by just coming over here and clicking. Let's go select this guy if I can. See if it's going to let me do that. It's not letting me for some reason. I don't know why. It just doesn't seem to be letting me do it. Well, let me see if I can do it another way. Let me go to the window menu and let me go to workspaces. All right, I'm sorry, arrange. Let's go to tile. Tile vertically. Okay, now if I move this thing over, let me see if I can move this over just a little bit. If I grab this thing, let me go to that layer right there. I'm on the wrong one. That's what it is. That's why I see it is selected up there. That's not one. I want the credit card. That's the one that I want. That's the one that I want. Okay, so I got my credit card. I'm going to go edit copy. All right, and then I'm going to come into this one. Selected area is empty. I'm on the wrong layer. I'm sorry. Let's go edit copy now. I got to get on the right layer. I was on the wrong layer. Edit copy. All right, and now come into this one and just go edit paste. And somewhere it came in, or didn't it? Maybe it didn't. I wonder if it's the position. Let me see if it's the position. Let me see if that's what it is. Is it possible that it's... Oh, there it is right here. I see it. It's very small for some reason. Let me see if I can... Let's go edit free transform. Let's see if I can get that thing to go bigger. It's very tiny in the middle there. I'm going to try to zoom in on it and see. Yeah, there it is. Let me zoom in on this so I can see it. There we go. Ooh, what happened? There we go. All right, let me see if I can go... yeah, let's go edit... free transform. All right, there we go. Now let's see if I can get this thing to be a little bit bigger. All right, let's make it like that. Too big. I don't know whether this is going to even enlarge. Might not. Oops. Oh, geez. Hold on. Let me fix it. Let's see if I can just make it somewhat bigger. That's probably good. Let's try it there. Apply. All right, so, oh no, all right, so it did, but it didn't come out very good. Let's go view, fit artboard and window, or fit on screen, I'm sorry. This guy here didn't come out very good, but I'm going to put it down there anyway. I would go and get a bigger version of this. I got this online. That's the whole point. I got this thing online. On this one, I got this from a friend of mine's site. I have a friend who has a really nice site, and this is what he had on his site. So I chose to put them graphics in there. So what I did was I went to his site and I did a screen capture of the graphics that he has on his site, the like, the tweet, and the share. And I actually went into Adobe Illustrator and I actually recreated them. So if I get around to it, I'll show you how I did that when I reached that point. And one of the reasons that this didn't work so much here is because I believe this is different resolution than this. All right, so probably what I would do with this is, yeah, I got to go into this one. Let's see, it's that one. Yeah, I would remove that. I'd get rid of that. All right, I'm going to get rid of that because it just isn't working. And I'll see about putting another one in. All right, so let me do this. Let me start off. Let me go back to the views. Go to the view, and let's go window arrange. There's a window arrange. Let's go to consolidate into tabs. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave these two open because I'm going to build this. All right, before I do this, I'm going to create the two pages, the two ad sizes. That's the first thing I want to do. But before I do that, I want to just take a minute and I want to explain one or two little things to you. First of all, I used some fonts that I had on my machine that I thought were going to be interesting fonts to create my ad. And I have them live so you can see what they are, and we'll go over that when we reach it. This photo of the steak, that's a photo that I found on one of the two sites that you have access to. So you should be able to go in there and you should be able to find a photo very similar to this, and you'll be able to use that image in your creation if you want. Or if you don't use this particular one, you can create one very similar to it. I'm not saying you have to go in and copy what I did. I don't really want you to do that. The other thing is, this image that you see here of all that flames up there, that image you're probably not going to find on the site. And the reason I say that is because I purchased a while back, I purchased this DVD, and on the DVD there were just a whole bunch of stock images. And once I paid for that DVD, those stock images essentially belong to me. And I can use them anytime I want for whatever I want. And I was looking for some images because I had this idea of doing this flame Brazilian steakhouse deal for my ad. And I was going through there looking for flames, and I found 2 or 3 pictures of flames. And out of the one that I found, I liked this one better than any. So I chose this one to work with. So, you know, you're not going to find this particular picture in those 2 sites that I gave you, but you can find something else. And again, it's up to you. You do what you want to do with it. You look for it and find it, okay? All right, so, and it's the same with this. I mean, you can see I used the same basic picture. I used the same basic piece of steak. I used the same type treatment. I used the same Brazilian steakhouse, steaks, cocktails, and family dining. And while it looks different than the other, it's significantly close enough that if you stumbled upon this in your magazine and then later on came and stumbled upon this, you would immediately recognize the two of them, because from a branding standpoint, they are very consistent to one another. That's kind of what I'm talking about here, is that when you do this, you try to do some consistency with it. Now, this one that we're looking at right now, which is the web piece, the instructions tell you to do in Photoshop. This one here is another story. If you choose to do this in Photoshop, I'm good with it. I think it's great. There's no problem. Do it. Have a good time doing it. Enjoy yourself. Make something interesting, fun, and, you know, learn. If you decide that you're going to do this in InDesign, that's fine. But just keep in mind that when you reach this guy here, this one is going to be created in Photoshop, because that's what the instructions tell you to do. Okay, so, you know, again, for me, what I would have done, let me go back to this one for a second. So let's say, for instance, I was going to do this ad in Photoshop, and let's say I wanted to add the copy to it in InDesign. What I would do is the following. I would hide this layer right here, and I would hide that layer right there, and I would hide that layer right there. So what I've done essentially is I have hidden the copy only. This is what I would keep, and I would put that image, that this is what's known as a composite image, or a morphed image. That's what this basically is. And this is, I mean, I would not remove the flame. This is my flame, because there's like 2 things going on to create that flame, and I'd never get that look in InDesign. So I need Photoshop to create that look. So I would create this part of it, and then I would bring that into InDesign, and I would add the steaks, cocktails, and family dining, the Brazilian steakhouse, and I would also add the, where's the other one? I guess it's at the top here. Yeah. The phone number and the www.flame.com. So I'm just showing you this because, you know, again, in all honesty, you know, there's certain aspects of this that you could do in Photoshop, certain aspects you could do with this in InDesign if that's what you want to do. In my opinion, it's just as easy and it works just as good for me to create the whole thing right in Photoshop. And I have no problem if you do that. Again, I'm just going over this so that you have a real sense of what you could and what you should be doing. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by building this flame steakhouse to give you an idea how I did it, okay? The very first thing that I would be doing is I would be going to the File menu and I would create a new file. And I would bring the new file dialog box up. And did I hit the wrong one? I guess I did. Let me close it. File new. There we go. There we go. File new. Give it a second to come up. All right. New document. All right. Now, so this is going to be, I'm mostly concerned with this information over here. All right, now, just as I was explaining to you before, there's a difference between print and the web. And these settings right here represent pretty much all of what we need to do to make this proper for my print and for my web. So let's start off by looking at the settings, and the first thing is this is set to read as pixels. Pixels are fine if we're working on the web, but we're working in print. So what I want to change it from pixels to inches, and that's how you do it. You just literally click on the drop down, change it from pixels to inches, okay? Then over here, I have a width. Now let me explain the width to you. This is important for you to understand. This is going to be a 4-way bleed. That means it's going to bleed off of all 4 sides of the paper. Actually, I take it back. It's going to be a 3-way bleed. It's going to bleed because this is going to be folded and going to be a part of a folded piece. So it's going to cut off on the one edge, the left edge probably, and it'll bleed on the right, and it'll bleed on the top, and it'll bleed on the bottom. But to make sure I have what I need, it's going to be 8.5 by 11. I'm going to need an extra 1/4 of an inch because there's an 1/8 of an inch on both sides for bleed, right? And again, if you want, look on my last week's discussion, and I cover a lot of this right in my last week's discussion, or it might even be this week. Actually, I don't remember. You know what? So I don't mess you up. Let me go to my discussions real quick. Let me just make sure I'm sending you to the right place, because I want you to know that I actually covered a lot of this in one of my week's discussion. I think it was in 2. So let me go to 2 here. I may be wrong. It might be 3. Let me just see. Let's see if it's 2. Yeah, nope. Guess what? I'm wrong. See, that's why I wanted to come in here, because it's 3. All right, it's this week. So here we go, week 3 discussion. Okay, here's what I want you to look at real quick. And I'm showing you this so that you specifically know this. All right, look, about layout. So my discussion this week is all about layout. We talk about grids and guides and whatnot. However, important factors in page layout design. This is what I want you guys to pay close attention to, because I think some of this is very helpful. I talk about purpose. I talk about size, colors, margin and creep, and what that means, bleeds and margins, and I talk about numbering, and I give you some idea of what that's all about. Designing with a grid I talk about. I give you access to some references here, and I even talk about the rule of thirds. So it's this week's. Please pay close attention to this stuff right here, because this factors into what you're doing, okay? So I'm sorry, but I wanted to just deviate for a second to show you that. All right, so back to this. What I want to do here is I want to set a width not of 8.5, but I want it to be 8 3/4. So I happen to know, because I've done this so many times, it's almost ridiculous. I want to put in for 8 3/4, not 8.5. That would be 8.5. I want to put in 8.5. 8.75, 8.75 inches wide by 11 inches is the norm. It's got to be 11.25, so it's going to be 11.25. So 8.75 gives me enough bleed, and 11.25 gives me enough bleed. Okay? Now the orientation, I'm going to set that to landscape. I'm sorry, portrait, not landscape. So it's 8.75 inches by 11.25 inches. The resolution on this has to be 300. Now, why 300? Okay, and it should be pixels per inch. It should be 300 because this is going to end up being a printed piece, and the required resolution for images of the type that we're creating has to be at least 300 pixels per inch. Now, if the printer tells you you could go with 250 or 200, then you could do that. But as a general rule, 300 is a safe number to use for print. And we're working on the layout for print right now. This is not the web one. This is the print one. Very important. Now, the color mode should also be CMYK. However, I do not want to put CMYK right now. I am going to leave this set at RGB because every image that I have that I'm working on is in RGB. And what I will do is I will build my entire piece of art in RGB, and then the last thing I will do is I will export my piece of art either as a CMYK PDF or a CMYK TIFF file to go into my InDesign project. So, just to review what I'm doing here, the width of this is going to be 8.75 inches, which is 8 3/4 inches wide. That allows for bleed. And then it's going to be 11.25, which will allow for an 1/8 of an inch bleed top and bottom as well. The orientation is portrait. The resolution is 300 pixels per inch. And the color mode in the end will be CMYK. I'm leaving it right now, and I'm going to be working on it in RGB. The background color is just going to be white. I could, if I want, go none. Can I do that? No. Well, I'm just going to leave it at white, okay, which is the background color over here would be white anyway. So I made it white. What's the advanced options? Don't color manage. Oh, well, I don't need that. All right, I don't want that. All right, so basically with those settings, I hit create, and that's what I end up with. Go view, fit on screen. That's what I end up with. If you take a look at it, it's very similar. Whoops, I'm sorry. Very similar to what I got right there, except it has nothing on it. Okay? Now, while we're at it, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create my blank document for my web. Now, just for a second, let me go back here and let me go back to my assignment. All right? And let me go to my assessment, week 3. All right, week 3 assessment. And the size of this, let me just refer back, it's 960 pixels, right, by 520 pixels. Okay, got that? And of course, it is going to be 72 pixels per inch. All right? So keep those numbers in mind, and let's go back to Photoshop. So we have our piece. This is, I'm going to call this, I'm going to file, let me save this. Save this as, I'm going to call this, let me go to my week 3, and I have, where am I at here? Wednesday's work. Ooh, actually, I don't know why I put Wednesday. It's actually Monday. I'm going to call this Flame, F-L-A-M-E dash print, E-R-I-N-T. So I'm saving this, and I'm going to save it as a Photoshop file. Okay, so I'm calling it Flame Print Photoshop PSD. I'm just doing that because I just want to put a name on it. If you're going to save this, you're going to save this as you're instructed to save it, name it the way you're instructed to name it. I'm just going to call mine Flame Print, hit save, okay? And now I got that saved. Let's go File, Open, and I'm sorry. Jeez, I want to file new. Sorry, let me let this thing close. It's going to come up. I'm going to have to close it. I made a mistake. File new. Let's see if I can get it. There we go. Okay, so file new. All right, now here's what we're going to do. This is going to be for the web piece. So this one here is, you'll notice that when we open this thing up, you'll notice that this thing defaulted back to pixels. That's what we want. So we're going to leave that alone. This is pixels. However, what we're going to do is this is set also to landscape instead of portrait, which is good. That's what we want. But the numbers are wrong. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to come in here, and I'm going to make this 960, okay, because that's what this width will be, 960, and the height will be 520, and the color mode is going to be RGB, and what we're looking for in resolution is 72 pixels per inch. I have 90 in here. Okay, I could leave it at 90, and then what I could do is I could optimize it later, but I'm going to just change it to 72 because that's what they're really asking for. And I'll leave the background color set to white. And okay, so 960 pixels wide, 520 pixels high, which is landscape, 72, RGB, and white. Hit create. And there. Now, if you take a look at these two, there's the print, and this is in the way. There is my web. And I'm going to save this file, save as, and it's going to be saved in Wednesday's work. This is going to be called Flame Web. FLAME-WEB, Flame Web, and that'll also be a Photoshop file, and I'll hit save. Okay, so there are my blanks, and then these are my finished pieces. What we're going to do is we're going to take a look at how I did some of this. All right, before we do that, I got this. Let me go over here, and let me go to DES-243. Let me open this up, and let me go into week 3. And let me go into food. Yeah, here we go. Okay, so this is what I did. Let me just quickly show you this. What I did was I went online and I found some reference materials. These are some things that I found that I was thinking maybe I could use some of this in one way or another. I like these pictures of the fish. I really like that steak. I ended up using that steak. This was my Shutterstock thing that I purchased. I bought a DVD with this Shutterstock on it. So I actually decided I wanted this, so I pulled this in. Again, you're not going to have access to this because it's something that is like privately owned by me. But it is an image that I use for my creativity. I found these images online I guess these are Shutterstocks too, but I think these Shutterstocks are on the sites that you have access to. So if you wanted to use them, I think you could use them. But there are other things, and I don't, listen, you don't have to copy everything I do. You can just go in and do something on your own, What I'm doing is I'm trying to give you some ideas as to how things work. That's really what I'm doing. And the bottom line is, be creative. Do your own thing. Don't be afraid to show me what you can do. What's most important is that you have fun. Okay, so anyway, these are my photos. That's what I just wanted to show you real quickly. All right, so the very first thing that I did here was I came in and I have to put in my background image. So my background image, let's go File, Place, and I embed it. I'm going to go to week 3, and I'm going to go into my food. Now my background image is my flame right there. So I'm going to hit Place, and in comes my flame image. Take a minute. There it is. And as you can see, it came in right to the edge of the image, but that's not a problem because I can go view, I can go zoom out, and what I can do now is I can take this thing and I can click, hold the shift key and the alt key down. I'm holding the shift and the alt key, and I can enlarge this thing until it literally bleeds off of my live area like that. And now I have that wonderful flame kind of thing going on over my entire background. I'm going to change this to flame background. Now, I know that you probably are thinking to yourself, what's the matter with this guy? He names everything. I name everything because I find that as I build these things, when I go looking for them, sometimes you get little tiny nothings on the screen, on this little thumbnail here. You can't even tell what it is. So by having a name that makes sense, it's going to be something that you'll be able to figure out, hopefully. So that's why I do it. All right, so there's my background, and if I want, I can come in here now and I can select that layer and I can lock that layer. Now, the reason I lock that layer is because now I can't do anything to it. See, I can't do anything to that layer because it's locked. All right, so now what I want to do is, there is my composition. I want to bring in my stake, and I want to start preparing to put my stake into my image. Okay, so let's go back and let's go File, Place Again. Place Embedded. And let me find my stake picture. My stake picture is right there. And hit Place. Okay, and now the stake picture comes in. And what I'm going to do again with this is hold the Shift key and the Alt key. And I'm going to just carefully bring it up until it pretty much bleeds off the page a tiny bit. And then I'm going to come over here, click on my Move tool. I get my Place dialog box, and I hit Place. And now it is placed. Then what I want to do is, okay, because I want the flame to be showing, what I want to do is I want to take this thing, and I'm holding the Shift key down, and I just want to bring it down to somewhere in here. I mean, I don't, here's the problem. The problem is I don't exactly remember where I put it on the other one. I don't have a height, so I'm going to place it approximately, okay? And then what I'm going to do is I want to mask the top part of this stake area so that the stake sort of blends into this. Let me show you. Let me go back to this. You see how the stake sort of disappears into this? That's what I want to do. I want to kind of blend it into that. I want that flame to blend into that stake. So I'm going to come in here, and on my stake layer, what I'm going to do is, let me move this over so maybe you could see it, because I got this name thing in the way here. I guess I can move that over like that. There we go. All right, let me move this in just a bit because there's plenty of space in the middle. Hold on. There we go. That's good. I'm right about like there. Okay. I got my, let me change the name of it. Stake. S-T-E-A-K. Stake. All right. Stake. Now, what I'm going to do is, with that selected, I'm going to apply a layer mask. Now, what this layer mask does, creates that little icon right there, and the layer mask is going to enable me to mask certain parts of my picture. And I'm going to do that because what I want to do is I want this picture to sort of disappear into the flames. That's what I'm looking for it to do. Okay, as it is right now, it's very abruptly sitting right there. But I want it to disappear into the flames. So by putting a layer mask on and by selecting my gradient tool, I can come up into my gradients and I can choose the gradient that will work for me. There's only one really that will, and that's the black to white. Okay, when you mask something, you're going to see in a minute what it does. Then I'm going to come over here and let's see, I think it goes black to white if I'm not mistaken. Let's see if I'm right. I'm going to click on this and I'm going to hold the Shift key down. I'm just going to bring it to about there. There we go. So you see what I did? I actually just literally dragged this thing a tiny little bit, and look at what happened up here. Can you see down here? Can you see up here where that that little black line is? That little black line right on that picture literally did that. It cut that right in half like that. That's what I did. Makes this thing blend in. Now, if I want, I can actually make that effect a little bit more pronounced by holding the Shift key and going a little bit further with it, maybe down into the meat just a bit. there. And actually, I think I like that better because see how it's really beginning to blend away in here. If I wanted to, see that's black. Now, this is the thing that you have to understand about layer masks if you don't understand about layer masks. White reveals and black conceals. So when you see black there, that is the color that is making this background disappear, the black. It's concealing the image on that layer. Okay, the white is allowing that image to show. So that's how this works. So now if you take a look at my Flame PSD, you can see it's pretty similar to the one that I have here, except I might have actually went a tiny bit further with this, okay? I might have gone as far down as that. But you know what? Now that I really look, well, I don't mind that either really too much. Now here's another thing that I could do. You see how this is beginning to show a little bit too much in here? What I could do if I want is I could get my paintbrush tool and I could make sure I have black selected. I'm sorry, I need to select white. I need to select white because I want to paint this out. And I want to make the size of my brush a little bit smaller. And I can do this. I can come in here and I can set my flow and my opacity level down a little bit. And I could come in here very carefully and just start painting over top of that area right there, and I could slowly make that background go away and bring that picture back by painting it in white. See how I'm slowly bringing that back? And it probably is a little bit too slow, so let me bring it up a little bit more. Bring it up to about 21. Let's see if that does a little bit better. Yeah, it is bringing it back. It's bringing it back. That's what it's doing. See, right in that area by the stake, I'm just painting it back. I don't know whether you can see this or not, but if you look at what I'm pointing at there, you can see that there's a painted area of white there. So it's not just, I'm not just goofing on you. There's actually painting going on, and that white painting is bringing that stake back in that area, which is what I'm trying to do. Just in that little area right there, I'm bringing that stake back. Okay, and I think I've done enough to meet my purpose. Now I got a pretty good composition. If I want to, I could even paint a little bit of this stake back too. I'm really just, you know, making this thing look better. So there's my stake, there's my background. Right now what I'm gonna do is go File, Save. And hit OK. I have two layers. I got my stake layer, my flame background layer, and I'm cooking. So now let's see. What we want to do next is I want to start working on the Brazilian steakhouse. So let me show you a little bit about my Brazilian steakhouse. So here's my word flame right there. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to click on the T here. And what I want to show you here, it's C-O-N-E-R-I-A. Let me write this down because I have a terrible memory for these things. All right, the type I'm using is C-O-N-E-R-I-A. Canera script, C-R-I-P-T, Canera script, S-L-A-N-T-E-D. And I use the size regular. I think that's all it is, and it's 145. 145. Okay, now here's the deal. I'm not exactly sure where I came up with Canera script slanted. It's very possible that it is a. Let me see if it tells me if I can figure this out. Canera, yeah, see, it doesn't really tell me. You know, the type kit. It could be type kit, but I don't really know. I don't know where I got it. I do have it, though. It could possibly something that I got from the Adobe type. So you could maybe try to find it there. I'm not saying that you have to use Canera. You can use whatever you want. All right. I used Canera because I thought it was a very sexy looking type for this. I thought it was a good idea. So let's go to Flame here and let's set up that line. And let me get my type tool. And let me click to place my cursor. And you see what happened? Since the last thing I had selected, this is important. The last thing I had selected over here was Canera script slanted regular 145 point. So now, because I did that, I actually loaded that font right in. So now I got this font right here. So again, you pick the font that you want, and I'm going to call this flame, F-L-A-M-E, flame. Okay, so there's my flame. And let me bring my flame into screen so we can see what we got. And you can see the thing fits exactly the way I want it right there. It actually might be a little bit too big, so what I might do is I might just literally select this guy again, and I may bring it down to 140. Let's make it 140 instead. There, make it a little bit smaller. Okay, select, deselect. There we go. Okay, so now I have that. All right, there it is, my flame. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to take the flame and I want to actually set the flame like it were type. That's part of what I'm going to do. So watch what I do next. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to control. I'm holding the control key. I guess it's command control. On your Mac, it's a command. I'm holding the command key or the control key down, and I clicked on the thumbnail right here. And can you see what I got was a selection? Very important that you understand what I'm doing. Holding down the control or the command key and clicking on the thumbnail, I created a selection. Now, I'm going to hide that layer for a second, and you can still see my selection. You see my selection? Great. Now, I'm going to go to my flame background layer. I'm on my flame background layer. I still have my selection. I am going to go to the layer menu, and I'm going to go new, and I'm going to go layer via copy. So it's layer, new, layer via copy. The layer is locked. Oh, I have to unlock the layer. All right, unlock the layer. I forgot to do that. Now go layer, new, layer via copy. And I want you to see something. I've actually copied the background flame of that layer. That's what my goal was, to create that flame so that I could play with that flame and make that flame part of that word. Okay? So that's what I did. I'm going to take this now and I'm going to move that all the way up to the top above my flame type. And I'm going to bring my flame type back. Okay? And I'm going to hide this layer. And what happened to my, okay, there it is. Bring it back. I have this hidden. Okay, you can see it. If you look, you can see it's just sitting over top of that flame. All right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select that layer right there. I'm going to go to Effects, and what I'm looking for is Stroke. Okay, and I get a stroke. And you see how I got that nice yellow stroke right there? All right, I'm going to hit cancel for a second because we're going to go back to flame. And you can see what I did. Watch when I hide this. Let me, whoops, that's the wrong one. Where's my flame? There it is. Okay, so you see what I got here? I have that yellow, and then I have that black, all right? So let me bring it back so that you can see it. I got that kind of a look going right there, okay? All right, so let me go back to mine. And again, I'm going to come over here to my flame, and I'm going to go to Effect, and I'm going to go Stroke, and it comes up, and I get this nice yellow stroke, which is what I'm looking for, and I have a stroke of 13 on it. That actually might be the right size. I'm not exactly sure, but I can always come back and modify this if it's not. So essentially, all I'm doing is I'm adding a stroke to the word flame, and hit OK. So now on that flame right there, I have that stroke. If I bring this back, as you can see, it worked. It worked just the way I wanted it to work. That's the look I'm going for. At least it's the look I'm going for so far. Now let's go back to flame and see what else is going on. All right, so what I did essentially here was on my flame layer, let's see what I have. I have it set to a normal and an opacity of 75 or 78. That's what I think it is. And let's see, on the flame layer, I also have a bevel and emboss as well as a stroke. All right, so the first thing I want to do is go back to flame, and what I'm going to do with this is I'm on that flame layer. I'm going to change this to black flame copy, BLACKFLAME, and then this is just going to be called flame, FLAME. All right, so I have black flame and I have flame. All right. So on the black flame layer, I'm going to hide this layer. I'm going to come in and I'm going to apply an effect of a bevel and emboss. Okay, and that actually, I think, is a pillow emboss, chisel hard, and I have it set to 313, and the size is 17, and the softness is 16. Okay, so essentially, what's happening here, if I'm not mistaken, is that these are all, there's one thing that's really great about this program is it has a pretty good memory. So I created this, was one of the last things I created when I used this particular layer style. So when I go back in to do it again, it pretty much remembers everything that I did here. Okay, so that's basically the settings. Pillow emboss, chisel hard. I have a depth of, what is it, 313. The size is 17. Softness is 16. The rest of this stuff is just default stuff. It's the angle is 120. Altitude is 30. I have a gloss contour on it, highlight, screen, and it's white. Opacity 31. Multiply is black. Opacity of 34. I'm going to hit OK because I think this is actually correct. Now let's bring this back for a second. And there you have it. That's kind of what it should be looking like, except that when we get into this, I think this is like 78. So let's bring it down to about 78. Let's see what we get. Oh, I'm on the wrong one. Sorry, I got to click the right layer. Make sure that you're always clicking the right layer when you're doing what you want to do. I made a mistake of not clicking the right layer. So now I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to bring this down to like 78. Let's see what we get. Actually, I should bring it down a little bit more. Bring it down to about there. There we go. Now let's compare the two. All right, so there, that's it. I think, let me see here. I have a drop shadow. All right, so that's the other thing. All right, so on this guy here, the top one, all right, that's that flame one. What I want to do is I want to add an effect to that. So really now the black flame, which is this guy right here, okay, this guy has an effect of bevel and emboss on it and stroke on it, and I end up with something that looks like that. That looks pretty good, but I mean, I really wanted to play with this as well. So now I got my flame layer, and I'm going to put a effect on this. And what I want on this one is I want a drop shadow. Okay, there's my drop shadow. And I think the only thing I did with the drop shadow is I upped the whatchamacallit on it, the opacity, and I might have even tweaked the distance just a touch. Yeah, there we go. That's it. There we go. That's what I'm looking for right there. So opacity 100%. I set it to normal, and it's black. So drop shadow, and this is on my flame layer. My flame layer. That is normal, black, 100% opacity, and the distance is 16. I hit OK. And now, if we zoom in on this, let's take a look, see what it looks like. Looks pretty amazing, doesn't it? I mean, the whole point of this is I wanted to read, but I also still wanted you to get that feeling of the flame. So let's go View, Fit on Screen, and that's how I created my original flame. As you can see, there's a slight difference in the color. It's a little bit darker, and I think that's because before I did this background, I think what I did was I actually moved that background up some. I think I actually have that background more like this. Let me get it up there where you can see where it is. I think it's actually more here. That's more like what it was. Something more like that. Let me see if I'm not mistaken. I might have gone a little too high with it, but that's basically why this is, yeah, let's bring this down just a bit. Okay, bring this down just a little bit, like about like that's probably pretty good. And then of course the flame, I would have probably done the flame before this. So let me do this now. Let me just show you. So we have the flame here, right? And we have this background, right? So there's our two flame. That looks pretty good that way too. So anyway, I have my two flame things here. What I want to do is I want to put them together so that I don't have the problem of those getting separated or moved. All right. So I'm going to select that, hold the Shift key down, and select that. So I got both of those two layers, and they relate directly to each other. I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to click on that folder right there, which is to create a new group. And I'm going to click on that. And now I have this group, which I'm just going to call Flame Title. F-L-A-M-E-T-I-T-L-E, flame title. If I hide that, it goes away. Okay, so if I open that, there's my top flame and there's my bottom flame. They're grouped together into one unit that I can now do things with all by itself. And I have a nice bit of type there. I have my background picture of my steak, and I have my background picture of my flames. I'm well on my way to designing this thing. Okay. Who's here? Jessica. Hi, Jessica. How you doing?
I'm doing all right.
Great. You caught me right in the middle of my demonstration of how we make the ad for this week. So you're gonna have to see all the things that I did so far up to this point in my recorded session. I'm building my ad for the page 8 of our 8-page book.
Okay.
Now, I've explained this all in class, but just so that you understand, you can do this either in Adobe InDesign or you can do it in Photoshop. I chose to do it in Photoshop because I enjoy working in Photoshop on things like this. You can do that if you want, because I'll let you. Or you can just build it right in InDesign. You also are going to be doing for your assessment a web piece that coordinates with this. And that piece has to be done in Photoshop. So I decided to do both of them in Photoshop, but that's totally up to you.
Okay.
All right, so let me keep going with what I'm going. Let me keep doing what I'm doing here, and it's now. I mean, all the hard stuff for this particular thing is done, but you'll see how I did it if you watch your whatchamacallit, your recorded session of this.
Yeah, I do after even when I'm in class, I go back and rewatch it.
Good. Okay, well, I mean, you're going to now see the rest of it from this point forward, but you'll see all the stuff that I said up front when I started this. See how I did the flame, okay, and how I did the silhouetting on this this steak, and I explained this back thing, and again, how to set the pages up. All right, so this is my finished piece. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to go to my Brazilian steakhouse, and once again I'm going to click on that to select it, and you can see that what I used for this was Bernard MT, okay, and I have it at 55 point, okay, regular. And so now watch what happens. Watch what happens, because this happened last time. It should happen again. Let me come in here now and let me get my text tool, and let me click and place my cursor right there. And oops, actually, you know what? Let me go edit, undo. You know what? Let me just select that. Okay, here's what I have to do. I have to click on this, and I have to lock that layer. There we go. Okay, now I can. The reason I'm locking this layer is so that it doesn't interfere, the type doesn't interfere with what I'm about to do. All right, so I click on that, I place my cursor, and cannot use the tool because it's locked. Okay, so I don't want it there. Why is this happening? I should be able to get. Okay. No. Let's go edit, undo. What is going on here? All right, let me create a new layer. Maybe I gotta create a new layer. Let me try that. I don't know why it should be creating its own layer. Oh, geez. Creating its own layer. Let me create a layer. There we go. Where are you? That's the layer. Okay, I'll get rid of that. All right, let me close this thing. Is that it? No, that's my layer. There's what I want. Let me get it out of there. All right, now let's bring this down. Let me on that layer. Let's try it again. Let me go back to here for a second, and let me click on my, where are you at? Brazilian Steakhouse, right there. Okay, and so I got Bernard loaded. Let me go back to Flame, and let me make sure I'm on that layer, and let me try it again to see if I can get this time to work. Okay, good. That's exactly what I wanted to happen. All right, so what I did was, just so that you understand, I created this before, and all of this is basically what I'm trying to recreate in here to give you an idea how I did it, give you some creative ideas as to how you could do these things if you want to do them. I mean, I don't know how much experience you have with Photoshop doing this kind of work. Have you ever done this kind of thing before in Photoshop?
Not really, no.
Okay, so I'm trying to give you some idea of how to go about building something like what you see I built here using Photoshop. And so that's essentially what I'm doing, hoping that maybe, you know, this will make some sense to you and you can go in and you can try a little bit of this, have some fun with it, okay?
Okay.
So one of the things that you might not be aware of is since I built all this, every time I click on any one of these elements, what's going to happen is like for instance, this is a bit of type. So if I select that bit of type, then this tool up here, which is my properties bar, is going to register all the things that I'm working on here. So that when I go back to my other one and I click to place this on the type layer, okay, I got the settings. You understand?
Oh,
okay. So really what I'm about to do is I'm going to, and again, my spelling is bad. Brazilian. I think that's spelled right. Brazilian Steakhouse. Steakhouse. Brazilian Steakhouse. All right.
You have an R in the steak.
Oh yeah, ST. I hit the wrong letter. Let me fix that. Yeah, I hit the wrong letter. That's all. ST. There we go. Steakhouse. Okay, so Brazilian Steakhouse. There we go. All right, so now I have Brazilian Steakhouse up here. And if you take a look at this, I do have it in black. But if you take a look, let me go down here and show you. There's my Brazilian Steakhouse. There's my Brazilian Steakhouse. I have a couple effects on it. Okay, you know about effects?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Okay, well, you're going to learn a little bit more because I'm about to put some more effects on this. So I got Brazilian Steakhouse here. I got bevel and emboss, and I got outer glow. Now, if I double-click on this, it brings up my layer style, which is bevel and emboss, okay, and outer glow. You see right here. See bevel and emboss right there, and you see the check mark? Okay, and here's my outer glow. Okay, there's my settings for bevel and emboss, outer glow. Now, what might happen here is because I've basically gone in here and selected all these things, I'm going to hit OK. If I come in here, I might be able to just go right down to here and go bevel and emboss. And it looks like it did. It looks like it brought up basically the same bevel and emboss. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit OK. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to apply the outer glow. And there, you see how that brought up exactly the same settings for my outer glow?
Yes.
All right, so now let's look at bevel and emboss real quickly. So there are different types of bevel and emboss styles. You have pillow emboss, you have outer, inner emboss, pillow, and stroke emboss. And just for your information, why am I doing pillow emboss? Very simple. I spent a little bit of time working on this thing, and I tried different settings. I tried the outer bevel, the inner bevel, the emboss, the pillow emboss, and the stroke emboss. And after I got done looking at every one of them, I decided that I like the pillow emboss best. So all I'm saying to you is if you do any part of this kind of thing, the settings are there for you to experiment with and get used to. And I'm not saying I use pillow emboss for every instance of everything that I do, but in this particular case, I thought the pillow emboss looked best with Brazilian Steakhouse, which is what I was trying to work on. That's why I chose it. There are different techniques. There's smooth, chiseled hard, chiseled soft. I looked at all three of them. And the one that I thought was the one that I have, or the one that I've set is the one that I chose, was the chiseled hard. I set a depth on it, and I did that by sliding around, and I, found the depth that I want, and it ends up looking like this. I have it going in the downward direction, and I softened this thing all the way out to 16. So I got something that's really soft. It almost looks more like a drop shadow than it does a bevel and emboss, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, of course, the shading, you've got the angle and the altitude. That's just a matter of either using the numbers, or you could take this little thing there. You see that little dot right there?
Yep.
Yeah, I can drag that all around, and I can get this thing to move around and do different things. I'm not messing with it, just so that you know, because it's exactly what I want. But I'm just kind of explaining to you that you can actually go in here and play with all this stuff and you know, get what you want. And when you're doing this, like by looking at it, you just look at what you're doing here and play with these things until you like the way it looks. That's what I did. You know, it's not like I went in here and say, okay, I'm going to do pillow emboss, chisel hard. I had no idea until I went in and started playing with it, and I looked at it and I chose the things that I liked. Same thing applies to my outer glow here. Let me switch to outer glow. The blend mode I chose is normal. The reason I chose normal is because I wanted a certain opacity to it. I wanted it to show. I wanted it to hide some of this darker area here so that the Brazilian steakhouse jumped out more. So I changed it. Normally, I think it was set to overlay, right? Or right here, multiply, I think it was. Or, yeah, I think it was multiply or darken originally. I changed it to normal, though, because I wanted it to hide some of that darker area there. Do you understand?
Yep.
Okay, drag the opacity all the way up to 100 because I wanted it to be rather strong. I didn't want it to be obnoxiously strong, but I wanted it to be strong enough that you could read Brazilian steakhouse really well. And again, this is all you got to do is play around with these settings until you get it the way you want it. There's no noise. I don't like to look at noise. Watch what happens when I drag noise into it. Can you see what it does?
Yeah.
It gives that peppery look.
Yes.
Yeah, it doesn't work here, so I didn't put it on, all right? I chose a color. I just click on it, and I chose a color. I ain't changing it. And then, of course, the technique, you can change the technique. I chose softer. You can change the technique from softer to precise. I didn't like the precise. I only put a spread of 1 on it, and I put a size of 250 on it so that it gave me a nice spread area on this. And that's all I did to create that Brazilian steakhouse. Now, hit OK. The Brazilian steakhouse is above my flame. So if I take my Brazilian steakhouse and I use my up arrow key and I start moving it up, what's going to happen is it's soon going to encounter that flame. And do you see what happens when it does? Can you see how the outer glow starts to cover up my word flame?
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't want that. So what I did in the end here was I took my Brazilian steakhouse layer and I clicked on it and I dragged it down to beneath the flame layer. Now in doing that, what happens is I can move this thing close to flame, but because it's on a lower layer, that glow isn't interfering with the word flame. Does that make sense to you what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah, that if I bring this back up, bring it back up, because it's above it. See how that gets over top of it? Because this is there, and it's going to cover that because it's higher. The layers work from top down. So I don't want that covering up the flame at all, so I just click that layer and bring the layer down to a lower position, which is, all you have to do is bring it down to beneath the flame layer right there, and now you're basically good to go, all right? And, of course, I don't want it that close to it, but I just wanted to show you how that worked. Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, let me bring it down a little bit. If you have any questions at all as I go through this, you know, please feel free to ask me. Again, you know, I'm just trying to do this so that you get some sense of how I approach creating an ad, because that's ultimately what we're doing. I'm doing this thing right here, or actually redoing this thing right here. Okay, that's what I did, and I used that in my 8-pager. Okay, so all I'm doing is I'm just kind of going through it again to give you an idea how I created it. It's not exactly the same, but you know what? It'll be close enough that you get the idea. And I'm using all the same basic techniques as I used to create the first one. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So that leaves me with this, which is my next line of copy: steaks, cocktails, and family dining. All right, so let's go to steaks, cocktails, and family dining. Now, again, I'm going to cheat. What I'm going to do is I'm going to double-click on this to select that copy. And it'll tell me it's Bernard MT Condensed, regular, 24 point, and it's in black. Now, what's cool about this is, and this is what I keep saying, since I did this before, every time I click on any one of these types, that information is going to go up inside that properties bar right there. And because it assumes that when I go to my other flame print, when I go there, and I go to put type in, it's kind of going to assume that maybe I want to use that font. So all that information is going to be there waiting for me when I get to the other piece. Isn't that great?
Yes.
So I'm going to now go into my flame print, and I'm going to do what I did before. I have my flame title layer locked. My Brazilian steakhouse, I don't know whether I spelled it right, but I'll do a spell check on it. I'm going to lock that layer, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the steak layer, okay? That's the layer with that steak on it. And I'm going to create a new layer, layer 2, all right? And now what I'm going to do is, because now I've forgotten what it says. Let's go to flame again. It's steaks, S-T-E-A-K-S, cocktails, and family dining. I'm sorry, but I haven't got a good memory anymore. I'm as I talk, I'll forget what I'm going to be typing. Okay, so now if I didn't touch anything, if I get my type tool and I click here, I get Bernard MT condensed regular 55 point black. I think that might be right. Let me see. Let's go steaks. Nope. Control Z. All right, so let's do this. Let me go back to my flame and let me click on that again. Okay, and it's 24. Let's see if now I have it. So let's go back to this one and let me click on that layer. Click on that. And at 55, no, I want 24. So I have to change it now. It's making me change it. All right, so I changed it now. It's Bernard MT condensed regular 24, and it's in black. All right, so it's going to be steaks, comma. What is the other thing? Steaks, oh God. Cocktails, right?
Yeah.
And family dining. Okay, steaks, cocktails, and family dining. Move it over to here. And I think I had this over like that. Now, the problem with this is it is behind the Brazilian steakhouse. And as you can see, what's happening is the steaks, cocktails, and family dining is being interfered with because that the background glow in front of it. So what I need to do with this is I need to click on that layer and I need to bring that layer up in front of Brazilian Steakhouse. See? And you see how now it gets dark?
Yes.
Okay. So now what I think I'm going to do with this is, if I'm not mistaken, let me go back to this. I also have a outer glow on that. And I don't think I have anything else. No, just the outer glow. So let's go back to this and make sure I'm on the steaks, cocktails, and family dining. And I'm going to come down to the effect, and I'm going to choose outer glow. Okay, and I get this outer glow here. Now, my outer glow is probably a little bit too much, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the size of it back, maybe about a third of the way. There we go. That's probably pretty good right there. And hit OK. Okay, now there's my steaks, cocktails, and family dining. The whole key to this is that when you do these effects, what you're doing is you're trying to improve or increase the legibility of the font over top of a area of graphic which is kind of intensely populated with visual. So I got this flamey thing going on at the top. I like the idea of creating this word flame. Did you see the flame without the actual flame on it? That's what.
No, I did not.
That actually looks pretty good that way, the flame. But I kind of like the flame over top of it. I just think it adds to it a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
So anyway, that's basically what's going on here. I'm using these mechanisms to kind of help this copy jump off of that flame background. And there's so much flame going on up there that if I have that little bit of outline around it, especially if I have a color that's similar to the color that's being used in the background, it all works pretty nice. So this ad is very close to being done. The only thing I would say now that I think about it is this flame is probably a little bit bigger than it should be. So maybe what I'll do is let's go to the edit menu and go, let's see here. Can I do that? Edit, free transform. Nope, I can't. I have to do this. I have to do this by doing it this way. Let's see if I can do it this way. Select both of them and go edit. Oh, I can't do it that way either. Huh. All right, I have to do this in one go. I don't want to do that then. I'm going to leave it alone. I don't want to go and mess this up. All right, so basically now I got this all done. The only thing I need to do down here is I need to add this little mortised area of black, and I need to add the address. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add that mortised area of black in there. So let me go in and let me go to the flame, and let me just come over here, and I'll go up to my topmost layer, and I'll create another layer up there. And this one, I guess this is my, what's this? This is a nothing layer. Yeah, that's a nothing layer. I can get rid of that. There we go. Okay. This is going to be my mortise, M-O-R-T-I-S-E. Now, that's really not the correct name for this, because this isn't really a mortise. This is basically just a black area. Okay, but I'm just calling it mortise. And I'm going to come to my paint bucket tool first, and I'm going to get my rectangle tool, and I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to create a shape, probably something like that. Okay? And then on the mortise layer, I'm just going to get my paint bucket tool. I have it set to black, and I'll dump black in there. And then I'll go select, deselect. Now there is my finished ad. Now as I said when I began this process, when I first did this thing, I said that what I could do is I could create this ad in Photoshop, and I could not use the Brazilian steakhouse, and I could not use this steaks, cocktails, and family dining, and I could literally just create my ad looking like that, save that as a TIFF, bring it into InDesign, and put that copy in InDesign if I wanted to. But I figured, you know what? That looks pretty good. And that looks pretty good. So in my opinion, you know, I will go this far with it in Photoshop. And what I'll do is, just to show you what I'm talking about, I'll put that phone number and the email address in InDesign. Okay. So now this thing is done. So what I'm going to do is, so again, do you have any questions about what I'm doing? Anything you want to ask me, or anything at all?
I think I'm good for right now. I'll
Okay.
rewatch the video and.
Okay. See, what you saw me do, though, relatively clear?
Yeah, definitely.
Does it make sense? Do you have any questions as to why I was doing anything, or anything at all?
No, not that part.
Okay, cool. All right, so now there's two things left to do. The next thing that I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to save this. Let me go File, Save. Just save it. Okay? Now I'm going to go File, Save As. Okay? And I'm going to change the format from Photoshop to TIFF. So now what I'm going to do is, I have it in this folder called Wednesday's Work. I don't know what I was thinking when I wrote Wednesday's Work. It's actually Monday. It should say Monday. The only reason I did that was so that whatever I'm working on goes into this folder here. All right. So I'm going to hit Save. And now it is going to be a TIFF. I'm just going to leave these settings okay and hit OK. Including layers will increase the file size. OK for now. Okay. So now I should have, give it a second, right here. Okay. Flame, print, TIFF. See it?
Yep.
All right, now, two things that I need to do. Number one, I don't need layers on this TIFF. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to go to the Layer menu, and I'm going to go Flatten Image. Okay, I have flattened all of this down into one image, and I did it in the TIFF. I did not do it in the PSD. Do you know why?
Why?
I preserved the PSD because if I made a mistake, like let's say for instance I didn't spell something right here, I could go back to the PSD and I could type check it, and I could make the correction, make the fix. I don't know whether cocktails, is that spelt right? I don't know. Family dining, I think's right. Steak's right. Brazilian, is Brazilian spelt right? I don't know. Steakhouse, I think, is right. I could have made a mistake. As a matter of fact, when I originally did this, I spelt Brazilian wrong. I spelt it with 2 L's. Okay, so I don't know, COCTAILS, I think that's correct. But if I make a mistake, I can't fix it now because all those layers have been compressed into one solid image. Now, why I'm doing it in the TIFF is because the TIFF is what I'm going to be exporting to go into InDesign. And that means that I believe that this is all correct. So now, only thing that's, so does that make sense?
Yes.
So if I go File, Open, and I go into Wednesday's work, I got Flame Print, I open it. And it'll open eventually. There it is. Okay, there's my layered piece. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yep.
And I can go in and I can fix anything that I might have wrong. As a matter of fact, let me go to the File menu. Or let's see, Edit. Yeah, let's go to Edit. Or where is it? Type. Where are you at? Edit. I think it's in Edit. I don't see it though. Check spelling. Where do you see? Here it is, right there. There it is. Okay. Brazilian Steakhouse is locked. Okay, hit cancel. Let me unlock those layers. Let me unlock the layers just so that you can actually, and go to Edit, and let's go to, where are you? Check spelling. All right, let's see if I got any errors. I don't think I do. Cocktail. Yeah, I do have it spelled wrong, don't I? Cocktails. Right?
Yep.
Hit there. There we go. Okay, File, Save. And now let's go in and let's go File, Save As again because I made a mistake. See what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's go Save As. Oh, it's being saved. All right, hold on. Let it save itself. Give it a second. And let's go File, Save As. Let's go to TIFF because I made a mistake. Flame Print TIFF. Let's hit save. Replace it, yes, because that was wrong. Could not save. Document is currently open. Save a different name. Oh, okay. Let's go to TIFF and close that. There we go. And save it. Wait, this is. No. All right. Is this the right one? This one we just fixed, right?
Yep.
All right. Let's go. File, Save As. And Flame Print TIFF. And save it. Replace it, yes. And hit OK for that. Layers, OK. Now, again, this is now the TIFF right here. And what I want to do is I want to go Layer, Flatten Image. Like I'm doing this, the reason I'm flattening this image is because I don't need, in this particular thing, I just don't need the layers. I don't want to mess up my PSD, so I didn't mess with it there. I don't need the layers here. All right, so now I have my TIFF, and it's right there. The only thing is, you see the color mode?
Yeah, it says RBG.
RGB. So what I want is CMYK, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so now at the very end of this production, I am going to go in and I'm going to go Image, Mode, CMYK. And then I'm just going to accept this for now. Okay, I now have Flame Print TIFF CMYK. That is perfect for what I need to go into my publication, my magazine. Any questions?
No.
Okay, so that's the assignment. That's the assignment. Now, I'm going to start, I'm going to hit save this, yes. I'm going to start working on, it's now 8:43. I'm going to start working on my web version of this, okay? So I'm going to close my Flame PSD and save changes, no. And Flame Print TIFF, all right, so Flame Web PSD, and here's my Flame Web PSD. That's my blank. I'm going to delete that file. Now, here's what I'm going to do. This is actually how I did this. You're going to find this very interesting. I'm going to go File, Open, and I'm going to go to week 3, and I'm going to go into my, see, where are you at? Are we in here? No, it's in, here we go. It's in the Wendy's work. Flame print. Give it a second to open up. Now, this isn't necessarily the way you're going to do this, but this is the way I did it, okay? Okay, so this is my, there is my first piece. This is the first piece that I did, correct?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so now what I need to do is I need to create a web version of this. Now, at the very beginning of this, I went through the whole process of explaining the size and all that stuff so you could see that. What's going on with this thing? Shut, will you? All right, so anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go File, Save As, and I'm going to save this as Flame Web, W-E-B. I already have a Flame Web in there, but it's blank. There's nothing on it, right? So I'm going to hit Save, and it's going to tell me, do I want to overwrite it? I do. All right, now hit OK. So why I am doing this is because this thing here is already completely built. And all I really want to do with this is I want to change the size of this, and I want to make it as close to this as I possibly can make it, so that it resembles this image that I'm working on right here. There it is. That's it. Okay? And I'm going to work on this one to make it look like that one. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to come in here, and the very first thing I'm going to do with this is I'm going to change the size of this piece. It's no longer going to be the same size. Now, what I want to do here is a couple of things to prepare myself. Since this is Flame Web, I want to hide this layer, and this layer, and that layer, and that layer. And I just have those flame layers. And what I want to do is I want to go to the Layer menu, and I want to go, oh, wait a minute. There we go. Now, Layer, I want to go Merge Visible. Now, the reason that I merged that is because now I have that one piece. Instead of two layers, I have it one piece. I'm going to have to resize this thing, okay? Mm-hmm. So I now don't have this as two pieces anymore. It's just one piece. It's not going to change. I just want to make it a little bit smaller, so I merged it. There were two layers. It's now one. Did you ever do that before?
No.
Okay. Well, you can do these things. So now I have this, which is my little mortise here, which I'll come back to. I have this, which I'll come back to. Right now, I need these three elements right here, because these three elements are how I start this whole process. So I need this thing to be 960 pixels wide, and I need it to be 520 pixels deep. So if I go into the Layer menu and I go to, Image, and I go to Canvas Size, not Image Size, because I'm not changing the image. I'm about to try to change the canvas, okay? Mm-hmm. So I go Canvas Size, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this from image, from inches to pixels, okay?
Okay.
Right now, the width of this is 2625. And what I want to do with this is I want to make the width 960, and I want to make the height 520. And I'm going to hit OK. And proceed. And I get something like that. Okay? So now what I got to do is I have to, let's go View, Actual Pixels. Let's go 100%. There it is. So now what I got to do is I got to size these three layers here, okay? So I have my, where is it at? I think it's my flame title right there. I want that layer, and I want to hold the ultimate, I want to hold down the Control key and click that, and click that. And what I want to go is Edit, let's go Transform, Scale. All right, and now I'm going to have to zoom out. Let's go View, Zoom Out. View, zoom out. Yeah, you see it? View, zoom out. See what I'm doing is I'm finding my image. View, zoom out. Okay, and I'll do it again. View, zoom out. All right, now I have these, and I have these 3 layers. So I have my flame, my stake, and my flame title, all 3 of them. And I'm going to hold the Shift key and the Alt key, and I'm going to start bringing it down until I get it in the screen. Okay, and I'm getting close. There I am. I have basically what I want. And if I'm not mistaken, I think I actually went further down. Let's see, go like this, like that, something like this is what I did. All right, and then I brought it up like that. All right, and that should be, let's go view, 100%. There we go. Okay, so you see how I'm in the neighborhood now? There's my other one. Let's go back and take a look at it. Give me a second here, because this has got to transform it. All right, let's see what we got. Okay, so there's my original. Okay, so I'm about like that. I'm about 3/4 of the way. So my flame is probably pretty close. Now, here's what I got to do to make this thing work. This is the actual correct size. As you can see, I'm getting close to this. So what I want to do now is I want to go to my background, right, which is this guy right here. Click on that layer, and I want to go Edit, Free Transform. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this thing, and I could try just doing this, dragging it out and distorting it a little bit until I get something like that. And yeah, that actually works all right, I think. And let's see, and hit place. And now let's go and check the old one and see if it's somewhat like that or not. See if that's what I did. I think actually, let's go back to my other one. I think actually what I did was Edit, Transform, Scale. And I think what I actually did was I think I actually made it bigger. I think I did that is really what I did. Something more like that. That actually looks more like what I did. And again, it doesn't necessarily mean I have to make this thing exactly the same. I want to get something close. Yeah, I think so. Let me go to this one. I think this one comes down. I think that layer comes down. If I can get it to come down. There we go. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. That's what I'm looking for right there. Okay? That's what I'm looking for. Now, the other thing that I did to make this different, and this text is probably in a good position for this. The other thing that I did was I came into this thing here. This is my stake, and I don't know exactly how high I have the stake. I have the stake up pretty high. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the stake layer. I'm going to bring the stake layer up really high to probably right about there. Let's see. Right to where that tomato is. I don't want the tomato on screen. So I got it just below the tomato right there. All right. Now, the difference between what I did here was I took this thing here and I threw this away. And now I have this thing showing. And what I did was I used my quick selection tool. You know what that is?
Yes.
Yeah. So I came in here now and I started dragging over my stake layer. Okay, and I'm going to make a quick selection of this steak. I'm going to try to grab as much of that steak as I can. I really want to grab that steak right. So I'm working to get that steak selected as much as I possibly can. Try to make this thing as good a selection as I can get. There's all of my steak selected. I think I'm almost there. Right like that. There we go. That's pretty good. Okay, now I am going to go to the select menu, and I'm going to go to modify. And I'm going to go to expand. And what I'm doing is I'm going to expand my selection by 2, making it bigger by 2, and hit OK. And did you see it go a little bit bigger?
Yes.
Yeah. And now I'm going to go to the select menu again, and I'm going to go to modify, and I'm going to go to feather. And what I'm going to do with feather is I got a feather radius of 1, which means essentially it's going to put a 1 pixel blur on the outer edge of that. Okay?
Okay.
All right, you with me then? Hit OK.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to go layer, new, layer via copy. And now watch. See what I have?
Yes.
Okay, so that's my goal. And that, if you take a look, is closer to what I'm trying to do here. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So now I got my stake and I have my flame. And now all I have to do is I have to come in here and I have to bring back my Brazilian steakhouse, my cocktails, my family living, and I have to put my banner across the top, and I have to put my, let's go select, deselect. I have to build my other areas, my other areas of images in here. All right, so that means basically that I have Brazilian steakhouse. I already have that there. I'm going to have to select this, and I'm going to go edit free transform again, because it's all there. And let's go view, zoom out. I'm going to have to zoom these guys out to do this. View, zoom out. There it is. It's way up there. So I'm going to bring this thing down here, and I'm going to hold the shift key down and the Alt Option key down, because what I'm doing is I'm just going to make it come in towards the center, and I'll just bring this thing down until I get it to about the size that I want, and that is probably pretty close. Now, I mean, if you're building something for the first time, what you're doing is you're actually building this. I'm actually just recreating this using the elements that I have to show you that you could actually do this, So there's my Brazilian steakhouse. Let's go to there. Okay, now my Brazilian steakhouse is down a little bit lower, so let me actually bring that down to about where it really should be, somewhere in that neighborhood right there, as opposed to the other. And I don't have the effects on it. The effects I have are different, so I'm removing those effects for the time being, and I'm going to rework them later. So that leaves this guy here, this steaks, cocktails, and family dining. Let's go edit free transform on that. All right, and let's bring that guy down right here like this, and let's reduce that as well. Shift and Alt, bring it down until that's about that size. I don't, again, know exactly the sizes. I don't have it. There you go. So actually, that's probably a little bit smaller. That's probably a little bit bigger. So let's go back to this one, and let's go view, fit on screen. Okay, so there's our Brazilian. I don't know what happened to my other piece. My other piece suddenly disappeared on me. Did I hide it? Where did it go? Brazilian Steakhouse. Where did that go? Let's go. View, zoom out. Why did that disappear like that? Let's see. So it's this. Let's go edit free transform. Or, yeah, I should say scale. Yeah, for some reason it went back up. I don't know why it did that. That's pretty weird. Let me see if I can get this thing to do what I want it to do. All right, let's go down like this. Probably like that. That's probably right. That's close. That's probably pretty good. Okay, and now apply. That's probably what it is. I didn't apply it. All right, so there, let me hide the effects on that as well. All right, now let's go view, fit on screen. Okay, so now I have my flame and my Brazilian steakhouse. The reason this doesn't look good is because it's not the actual size. If I go view 100%, that's the actual size. See, and it looks pretty nice that way. You understand?
Yeah.
Okay, so really now I got my Brazilian steakhouse, steaks, cocktails, and again, I don't know whether I got to spell it right or not, but let's go in and make the changes. So the steaks, cocktails, and family dining, I'm going to double click on that, and I'm going to change that from black to white. All right, and hit OK. And that stands off pretty good. I will eventually do a drop shadow on that. Now this guy right here, that's black. But what I did with this, let me see what I have on this one. That is my, where are you? The Brazilian Steakhouse. Where is it? There, it's in the text. Brazilian Steakhouse. Where are you? You see it? There it is right there. So I have bevel and emboss, outer glow, and drop shadow. All right, so let's do this. Let's click on that. Okay, so we have bevel and emboss. There's my bevel and emboss. And let's see, I have my drop shadow. There's my drop shadow. And isn't there another one on there? Bevel and emboss, outer glow. Okay. Oh, so the outer glow. Okay, I don't want the outer glow on that. I don't need that. Let me delete that part. Let's delete the outer glow. I don't think I want that. All right, so bevel and emboss. Let's see here. Bevel and emboss and drop shadow. All right, hit OK. Now let's go back to the other one, and let's click on this, and let's go bevel and emboss, and let's go drop shadow. All right, so now my settings aren't there, so I'm going to have to put these settings in. So it was actually yellow is what I did, I believe. Yellow. All right, and hit OK. And I had to set this to normal. It's not applying it. What's going on with this thing? Yeah, what's going on with this thing? Brazilian Steakhouse, bevel and emboss. Why is it not showing me? Oh, you know why? Because they're hidden. There we go. There we go. Okay, so I don't want that. What I want is drop shadow. I don't want outer glow. I want to drop shadow. And I want this to be not black. I want it to be yellow. All right, so we'll make it yellow, something like that. There we go. And I don't want it, I want it to be a little bit more like that. There we go. And it's too far away, so let's bring the distance in. Something like that. That's probably pretty good. See what I mean? I'm not going to get it exactly the same, but I don't need to. And then what I'm going to do is with the bevel and emboss, let's go to the bevel and emboss, and this is pillow emboss. Let's go outer bevel. No, that's no good. See, this is what I'm saying. Inner bevel. And this is emboss. And I'm not getting really, it's not defining. Hit OK for now. Let me see. I guess that's kind of what I have, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
It might be. It's just that it might be that this is my Brazilian. Let me go to my bevel and emboss. Let me drop shadow. Let me make my drop shadow a little bit. Let's spread it out a little bit. That's good. Let me make the size a little bit bigger. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. I want a little bit bigger on that. It's a little too much. That's probably good right there. Brazilian Steakhouse. All right. And then we have our steaks and family dining. Let's see. And that, I think what we did with that is we just put a drop shadow on it. And for some reason, I'm not seeing my drop shadow on that one. I don't know why. Probably because I haven't got it black. Let me hit normal and make it black. See if that helps. What's going on here? Hold on here. Yeah, now why is this? Let me get rid of these effects. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. And get rid of that. And let's try it again. So let's hit effect. And let's put drop shadow. Why am I not getting my drop shadow? What's going on with this? I want that to be black. Okay. How strange. Drop shadow. I'm not getting my drop shadow. Let's see. For some reason, it just is not giving me a drop shadow on that. I don't know why. I don't know why I'm not getting my drop shadow. Well, all right. I want a drop shadow on it. For some reason, it's not giving me the drop shadow. So I'm going to just leave it for the time being, okay, because I don't exactly know why. Or better yet, you know what I could do? I could duplicate this thing. Let's just duplicate this guy. And on the one at the bottom, let me change the color of it to black. I'll show you another way we can do a drop shadow. Click on the black, hit OK. And then all we're going to do is this. We're just going to take that bottom one and we're going to move it down a little bit. See what I'm doing?
Yes.
I'm doing that. So that's a cheating way to get a drop shadow. That's just if it's the only reason I'm doing this is because it's giving me trouble and I want to move on. Okay. So there you have those two. Now what you might want to do with this is you might want to select the cocktail layer and these layers here. Okay. And you might want to align them all. See what I mean?
Yes.
All right. And then you can move them into position wherever you want them to be. I might move them up a little bit, you know, and maybe bring it up like that. Okay. But that's basically it. And I mean, if you don't like that Brazilian steakhouse, we could change that color. But I think we're okay. I think we're okay with this. So that's what we're working for. I'm at 9:03. So I'll tell you what. I am going to save this now. File save. And I am going to continue working on this tomorrow when I have my class, which will be at 9 to 11 tomorrow. And I will also be doing my critiques tomorrow. Do you think you're going to be able to get here tomorrow?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Okay. So I will see you tomorrow. And did you submit something for critique? I think you did, right?
Yes, I did. I did change up. I might have to send you a new one.
Well, that's fine.
I did change up a lot of the font, because for some reason the Gotham wasn't working right.
Yeah.
So I had to change all that up.
Okay.
So I'll package it, and I found a few places where it was like in the 10 area, and it was supposed to be 11. I don't know what happened with that. So I fixed that, and I did fix the bottom page, like you on 6. I kind of just placed the steak all the way across.
Okay.
To make it look better, and it filled it up quite a bit. So I don't really have too much space down below now, like I did.
Okay.
And but I did have to change the headlines. And
so let me ask you a question. Did I give you a full passing grade on it already?
I missed it by 5 points.
Okay, so I'll go in tomorrow morning or later on tonight, and I'll look at it and I'll update your grade, because I think you did a pretty good job overall. And I think the only problem you might have had 1 or 2 little tweaks that you had to do, but I think generally you had it pretty much there, if I'm not
mistaken. I'm gonna turn it in a few minutes, because I've been working on it all day.
Okay.
I had to actually take a break from it because I almost threw the whole thing away and restarted it over. But
well, the heavy lifting, but the heavy lifting's done now. See, this is those 2 weeks were the really bad weeks. This week is not bad. This is actually fun to create this ad. It's very much fun. It's not hard to do. And,
I enjoyed it. It was just
but all I'm saying is that's last week was a big job. 4 pages. You had to make the copy fit. You had to do creative things with photography. You had to format text. You had to give me subheads and heads and all this stuff. Pull quotes. All had to be formatted.
And you did say something about characters. So I do have characters. I only have 2.
Uh-huh.
And I did like a EDI headline.
Yeah.
And then I did a feature headline.
Okay.
So that made sense to me.
Okay.
So
well, bring it up when I do your critique tomorrow. Bring it up then, and we'll talk about it, because I'm not sure what you're talking about without seeing it. And we're over time now. So tomorrow, what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish this tomorrow. I'm going to very quickly go in, and I'm going to show you how I put this ad into the piece. And then I'm going to go right into critiques, and I'm going to spend the rest of the 2 hours on critiques tomorrow.
Okay.
So we'll go over it. We'll go over the whole thing then. I'll do you first, I assume, if you're there. I'll do you first, and we can talk about it then.
Okay. Well,
right.
I'm gonna repackage it and send it to you tonight, and resubmit the PDF, and we can go over it tomorrow. Because I really want to get. I wanted this to look really good.
Mm-hmm.
Because I kind of critique my own self.
No, that's what you should do. And I mean, the bottom line is you should want it to look good. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. You should want it to look good. I mean, the bottom line is you want to learn this program, and you want to learn these things so that you are a designer, because these are the things that graphic designers do. I mean, this is what it's all about. So, I mean, it's an important thing. And the bottom line is you want to end up learning the techniques, but you also want to end up, if possible, with something that's nice enough to be a portfolio piece that maybe can get you some work. So, again, but you've done the heavy work. This is now the fun stuff, creating a cover and creating this ad for the back, this is easy. I mean, compared to laying out 4 pages and making the copy fit properly and look good, that's hard work. This is not as hard, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I
So,
mean, and that's what it was too. Is getting the fonts to work just right.
yeah.
And sometimes I was just getting I had to walk away
Yeah,
for
well,
like
I mean,
5 10 minutes.
yeah, this is something that you'll practice, and over time, I mean, you're going to get much better at this. You just got to be patient with it, and put the effort in. Make the effort. That's the whole thing. Make the effort. The effort you put in is what you're going to walk out of this class with.
Oh yeah, I mean, when how you did the text wrap and everything, I thought that was so interesting because I was like, I wonder how they do that in actual magazines.
Yeah, right. Isn't that a great technique?
Now I saw how it was done, and
Yeah, it's
I really
fabulous.
like it.
It's absolutely fabulous. And the nice thing about it is if you know anything about Adobe Illustrator, I mean, you can go in there and you could use those tools to just keep moving points around and modifying it until you get pretty much the look that you want, you know? So it's actually very cool, and it's a great look. I mean, to have that image with the with the text wrap around it, sort of following the shape, fabulous. I mean, that's why I had to show it, because I thought, geez, these guys gotta love this,
Oh yeah, I do, especially when it comes to trying to make my design well.
Yeah,
And I always try to think of something different, like different from everybody else.
yeah.
I try to, I want something different, but I want it to look real good too at the same time.
Yeah. All
And
right.
my husband's like, you work on it for 10 hours. Why are you doing it?
Because you're learning.
Because
There's
I'm
going to
learning.
come a day, yeah, when you get to be a full-fledged designer and you're in control of all these programs, this stuff won't take you 10 hours to do. This will take you a few hours to do. And you'll find that the reason that it takes you a few hours to do is because you don't want to rush yourself. And what you want to do is you want to think through the process as you're doing this, and you want to see whether there's anything that you could do a little bit better. So that's part of the process. You'll see,
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I told him. I was like, yeah, this one's kind of, getting just things right for an 8-page layout. I said, can you imagine doing a magazine that has at least 70 to 80 pages?
Oh, what a job, huh?
Yeah, what a job.
Yeah.
I kind of actually, really respect those people, how they do it, because that takes a lot of work.
These people who do that work on it every day, all day, for years. And these people they know the book because they've worked on the book over and over and over and over again. And that's what it takes. I mean, that's really what it takes. That's why, when I give critiques and whatnot, I'm not reluctant to give the critiques, because it gives you the opportunity to go in there and play with it again. And eventually what's going to happen is you're going to learn better what it is that you're playing with. You're going to be more comfortable with it. So if you come across something like this again, it's not going to be so terrifying. It's going to be like, oh, I've done this before. I know exactly what I'm doing with this. Or I have some idea what I'm doing, at least now,
Yeah, exactly. And that's how I feel about it too, is that if I keep working at it and making sure that my letting and my points are exactly the same, then I won't have a problem.
Yeah, that's how you learn. So, again, there's some people that will do that, like yourself. Other people, will just go in there and whatever they do, and, hardly care, So it really, you get out of it exactly what you put in it. That's what it is. So, again, the critiques are there to make your piece better, but they're more in a way I can exchange some ideas with you as to how to improve it, and it kind of tests your skill of what you've learned as you were doing this. Do you know how to go back in and fix that? When I tell you such and such is wrong here, do you know what to do with that? Do you know how to fix that? That's essentially what that critique's really all about.
Yeah. All right. Well, you have a good night now.
Yeah, I'll see you tomorrow morning then, all right?
Yep.
All right. Have a good night.
You too. Bye-bye.